Hi, this is Joe with another episode of Synergy's Accidentally Fit podcast, where we're talking about those small habits that make a big difference over time. And so you become a fit person without even really realizing it. Now, the same thing happens the other side, where you get those habits that creep in and you become accidentally unfit over time. And so we're doing this to share tips and tricks of people who are doing it, because no one's the same. There's not one diet that's going to fit for everyone. There's not one exercise that everyone should do. But as a collective group of knowledge, you're going to be able to pick some things up and being able to implement them yourself. So it's kind of we'll throw a lot of stuff out there. We'll have a lot of conversation and choose what's best for you. And feel free to ask us questions. Shoot us an email and I'll be able to help you out. Now, today I am joined by Andy. I got to meet Andrew about 2 years ago. He just filled me in on that at Synergy. And Andy's a busy guy. Job, wife, am I missing one? 2 kids, right? Hank and Augie?
That's correct. Yep.
I always feel like I'm missing a kid for some reason. I had the same conversation with Beth Marsh earlier. I'm like, you have 2 daughters, or do you have 3? For some reason, I think 3 now. But Andy said he shaved today and he jumped on looking like Santa Claus, putting me to shame. I hope you're listening to this podcast and not watching the YouTube video, so you don't see my hairline chasing the backside of my head, and Andy looking here again like just a fresh, strong-looking Santa Claus. So, Andy, thank you for joining us today.
No problem. Glad to be here, Joe. And
so I invited Andy on because he's been someone that's been up and down, and this challenge is about the honest truth, about the difficulties it is that you have to overcome when getting fit. We are just getting through, hopefully, through a pandemic, hopefully on the back end of it. But that's, there's a lot of things that go along with being a parent, being home more, trying to keep your kids educated, watching them grow up, get to their stuff, get you your own workout stuff, and make sure it all works. So, Andy, can you tell us a little bit first on why you started to pursue fitness and living a healthier life? What motivated you?
I have to give a lot of credit to my wife. I mean, I knew I wasn't fit. I knew I was not in a good place, but luckily she just continued to be on me. My wife has gotten very healthy herself in her late teen years, and she's been able to do a very good job. And that's heavily influenced just about everything I've done since I've known her. And finally, back in like 2012, I started working out and walking and eating better and lost a bunch of weight. And, you were talking a little bit before about ups and downs. So that was 2012, 2013. I got down to the lowest weight I'd ever been. And then, unfortunately, as you said, things creep in. I got in my own way mentally, and things just kind of went downhill and snowballed from there. And next thing you know, I'm almost 2 years ago, I find myself crawling into Synergy because I just couldn't take it anymore. I had gotten to a point where I was not in a good spot. So
it is weird how it creeps in. It happens to me too. It's just one of those things where something happens. Maybe it's you step on a scale. Maybe it's you try to put on an old pair of pants. Maybe you brush your teeth with a new pair of batteries and the electric toothbrush and your belly jiggles at the same time. But something says, oops, I screwed up. Now, I do remember when your wife reached out originally, now that you mention it, because we were doing a promo for her employer and the employees there and their family, and she didn't want to come in right away. She sent you in. Sometimes we get that. We're like, all right, someone's going to send in somebody else, their significant other, to test it out to make sure we don't kill them first.
Yeah, definitely. I joined on one of the 6-week My Zone challenges, and there's been no looking back. I mean, it's been one of the greatest experiences I've had. I even 2 years later, I look forward to going to the gym 6 a.m. Even before that, I'm ready to go. I can't wait to do it. The community of people that I've met there is just amazing. I've met more people through Synergy and Vestal than the entire time I've lived here in Binghamton, which is going to be 18 years, 19 years actually next month. So I've got a real nice group of friends, and you talked about Beth Marsh. She reaches out and invites me to events, and Georgie G. He's bantering back and forth, and there's just everybody. I couldn't possibly mention them all. It's just an amazing experience.
I do love the banter and the chop busting, and it's done in such a positive way. And it's funny. Like George, he'll disappear on me. George has been a guy I got to get on the podcast who's been on the roller coaster. He used to be my old Teener League baseball coach. I've known George since '98. And I've been busting his chops ever since, and he's been busting mine back. But it's just the friendly, hey, where you been? You know, like send him a picture of an empty square where he should be working out, like stuff like that. So you have those good relationships. So it's something I do remember, Andy, when you came in, and I was still running a lot of the sessions. Regardless of the fitness level, you did have a marked determination. Like you could tell, regardless of whether you're in shape or out shape, I could look at it like, all right, this guy's going to get in shape because you seem so committed to it. What kind of external stuff, like what are the reasons? I know you said your wife was on you to get fit, but usually it's more than that because usually those people drop off after a month or two.
Well, it's just everything. I mean, I have young kids. I have a wife that's younger than I am. So, I need to make sure I'm fit. And unfortunately, in my family growing up, there was no talk about eating properly and exercising. That stuff just didn't exist. We ate what we had, and I wasn't healthy. I didn't eat great. And we have heart disease. We have some other issues going on in our families. And unfortunately, due to that circumstance, I lost my brother back in July at 47 years old. And, if I hadn't changed my life, I hadn't done something about it, it very well could be me next. And so, I woke up and realized that is the type of thing that could be coming.
I'm seeing a trend with these, and just reflecting back in my old young life, is that really personal training, personalized group fitness is kind of a new phenomenon. We get frustrated, like, hey, why aren't we taken seriously by the medical community? But like, you look back when we were kids, it was, you go to Gold's Gym was like the gym. Like there was just commercial gyms people would go. Healthy eating was, you get those like healthy choice frozen bricks in your freezer, and your mom would eat them every once in a while, and then like they looked awful, smelled awful. It came out of the microwave with plastic stuck to them, and that was our perspective on dieting when we were growing up.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, it just, again, we were just, it was just a matter of getting enough to eat. I mean, we didn't have a lot as we were growing up either. And, sometimes that plays a part in it. So, and I didn't know any better growing up. I mean, that's the life we were living in. And my whole family was, was that way. I mean, it, not so much all overweight or anything like that, but it's just, we didn't talk about fitness. And, it's been really cool to do this. And now I'm the guy to talk about fitness with. Everybody wants to talk to me about it. I mean, I don't like to take a lot of credit, but I've had several guys come to me and I feel like I've directly influenced them to better themselves and to do better for their health. So
Absolutely. And you just do deserve some credit for it. It is studied that you kind of soak in the attributes of the people you hang out with. So if you're strong enough to say, hey, fitness is one of my attributes, and people around you start seeing that, they're going to be more magnetically attracted to take care of themselves. And it's so important for moms and dads to help each other along finding that, because there's so much BS out there that you don't know what to trust, but you can trust your friends. And once you see people doing it, then you get to be a part of that community.
yeah, for sure. And I'm definitely trying to, you know, make my children aware of their fitness and of their health, but in a very healthy way. I mean, we don't talk about, being overweight or anything like that. We just try to talk everything, like a lot of things you teach your kids. You talk to them about good choices and why are we doing things. Why are we going for a 5 or 10 mile walk, and why do we do this all the time? And there may be some pushback now, but I really strongly believe that I'm building a base that later on in life they can really see why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, before to get ready for this conversation, I took a walk down to the stop sign and back, which is 2 miles, with my older son, thinking about how often you speak of influence. You've influenced me. You're out there pushing the stroller, walking the hills with your kids, and that's been going on for a year and a half, where you've found a way to integrate, and this is something I was talking with Beth, to integrate fitness into your family life, because they're not opposite ends of the spectrum. It's not like you lock everything out and you get me time, or you're with your family, but you can actually integrate them both. And that's how you get long-term results, because as a parent, you get to see and you receive extra value outside of being fit, outside of living longer. And that's instilling values in your kids and setting them up for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we really enjoy our family walks, and most of the time we end up diving into a conversation and we don't even realize at the end of it that we've gone however long it is that we've gone. So it there's plenty of benefit there between the physical part of it and the, just spending time with each other.
What are some things you've been able to do with your fitness? And we'll talk about injuries here in a minute because you're talking before we hit the record button on that. But what are some things you've been able to do with your fitness that weren't really possible 3 years ago or 4 years ago when when you had fallen off from the motivation of the previous results?
I mean, I have the ability to go for as long as I want to go. I mean, I can go out and, at this point, I love walking. It's one of my go-to exercises. If I'm not in the gym, I'm walking. But now I seek out bigger, steeper, longer, more hills because I want to get my heart rate up, and I kind of need that. Flat walking, it's still beneficial, but it doesn't get my heart rate up at all. So prior to that, I mean, back when my wife and I first started walking around here at our house, it was, multiple stops in the middle of one hill just to make it to the top. And now I just power up over and back down and wherever I want to go. So basically, I do whatever I want with my fitness now. There's not a
You're an
whole lot
all-terrain
that
vehicle now.
there's
Before
not a
you were
whole lot
like
that
one of
stops me.
those little plug-in golf carts, but now you're an all-terrain vehicle.
Absolutely. Yep.
That's a beautiful thing. Now, we were talking about injuries a little bit because again, this is the honest discussion. I've had them. You've had some dings here and there that have knocked off fitness. How have you stayed motivated through your bum shoulder?
Nope. There you are.
Yeah, well, I live out in the boonies, and when my wife uses the microwave, the internet pauses.
Well,
So,
that's all right. So, yeah, so injuries, I mean, I've actually been really lucky. I mean, I've had some aches and pains here and there, but unfortunately this year, as we were just talking about, since right after the shutdown where I stopped going to the gym, I've just been having some trouble with my shoulder, and I'm the type of guy who likes to try to put it off, and usually I can procrastinate long enough where whatever is hurting me stops hurting me and I can continue on what I'm doing. But it's kind of slowed me down. My upper body has suffered a little bit from it, although I'm still trying to work it out a little bit. But recently, I've started doing some PT, and I've been seeing a doctor, and so I'm taking steps and measures to make it better, and I'm hoping to get back to where I was. But I guess the biggest thing is for me is whether my shoulder hurts or doesn't. I'm going to the gym. I've got to get in there because the routine is the most important. Consistency is what I tell people all the time. I don't care what you do. I don't want you to go out the first day and walk 20 miles or try to do anything like what I'm doing right now, because I couldn't do what I'm doing now back when I first started. So just do small things and do them consistently. So
I think that's a beautiful point. There's always something you can do. Back in the day, we used to train athletes, and they were, I don't want to say a little tougher or whatever, but they had higher expectations to continue exercising if they had an injury because they wanted to get back as fast as possible. So we would have one. I remember, I think it was Max Sinicki. It still goes to the Envol gym. And this is probably a decade later from his main Envol football days. Broke his ankle or something. So we had him sit on the prowler and push it with his hands. So he wasn't using his ankle at all. And he's going to kick out of that. There's always something you can do if your shoulder bothers you. Typically, you can do more rowing exercises. You can do some more leg exercises. You can walk. You can hit the bike. You can do maybe some rower. There's things you can do. But like Andy mentioned, staying consistent is the key part, because going from complete stop to restart, everyone out here listening knows that's very hard. So it's easier to keep momentum going no matter how small it might seem, whether it's a 20-minute walk a day. Staying consistent is really going to get you results in the long run so you don't have such a big dip.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was my mentality through the whole shutdown until we could get back into the gym in the capacity we are now, which is great. But I mean, I kind of tried to think about always doing something like you just said. And for me, I focused on, cardio, and the workouts at home were a little tough for me to get through. I'm not sure why. It's just one of those things where for me, it just didn't work that great. So I didn't do a lot of those,
Yep.
but I felt like my cardio was something that had gotten pretty good, and I didn't want to make any losses. I didn't want to lose anything. So I was out running, walking, And so that was the kind of the thing that I focused on during that period.
That's great. It's always moving forward, and what works for me might not work for Andy, might not work for you, but what works for you might work for Andy. That's why we're sharing these, and maybe you are someone who likes working out at home and likes to not be out right now or bothers knocking the snow off their car. There's a lot of benefits. Maybe you're a person that has to be at the gym in order to get it done and be told your sets and reps. So there's different approaches, but you just got to keep moving, like Andrew was saying. So what was 1 or 2 times you've been out of your comfort zone at the gym, and how'd you work through it? What's a couple times where it gave you something and you're like, these guys are crazy, I can't do that. And then how'd you work through it?
Oh, so a couple times, a couple things that we tried. I really struggled with push-ups and like that when I first started. And there was one time pretty early on. I remember you say to me, "All right, you're going to finish out with 100 push-ups," and I was like, "There's no
I
way."
remember that.
And you said to me, "A good time would be," I don't remember what it was, how many minutes, and I finished in whatever time it was, and I did get through it, but it was a struggle. It wasn't pretty, but I pushed through it. And there were a couple other times. Some of those challenges you and I did last year were awesome. I mean,
The
I
Jacob's
really didn't
ladder.
know going in. I didn't really know going in whether I was going to be able to do it, but when I put my mind to something and I set my sights on it, I'm going to be on the floor if I didn't complete it. So that was really cool. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, and I was doing I don't know what I was doing. Maybe it was a podcast, maybe it was a 2-minute truth. It all blends together. But sometimes when you get a routine, it gets boring. And some people use that as an opportunity to fall off when you can really institute it as an opportunity to step up and try something weird for a day. Not every day, but maybe it's 10,000 feet on a Jacob's ladder. I think that's what Andy and I were doing. Or walk 10 miles, or do a row sprint for time every day. We have Rowvember going on. But when you get in a rut, don't use it as an opportunity to stop. Use it as an opportunity to switch it up for a little bit and then get back. So we all need that switch up.
Yeah, I mean, as much variety as I get working with you guys and putting things together myself. I mean, I know we talked about that, what I called the Appalachian Hill Challenge I did earlier this year, which ended up being somewhere around 16 miles up and down the hills behind the house. And that was a really cool time too. I mean, I picked up my family about halfway through, and that was just one of those things where I kept talking about I was going to do it, and it was something different, and I did do it. So
Yeah, and so maybe we'll focus this on our last tip, because that's great that having these little challenges or something to work towards and then completing it. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to lift X number of pounds. It actually shouldn't be that, because that's going to be very, very difficult to accomplish with a lot of factors. But it could be, I'm going to go out and complete a marathon, walk, crawl, whatever it is. I'm going to travel a marathon, and you set that up 3 months in the future, and so it gives you something to do. It could be a purely you versus you challenge. It does not have to, and I prefer it not to be, for me, a big public challenge. Mine was burn 10,000 calories in a day. That was hard. we're in the mind zone of giving that a shot. And then 3 months back to the routine, and then mix it up with the challenge again.
that's right. I'm looking forward to doing something interesting when the cold weather and the snow hits out through
Yeah.
the woods or something. I don't
We'll
know.
go
I don't have a
swimming in my
plan yet,
pond.
but
We'll get
yeah, that's a good one.
we'll get the chainsaw out and swim some laps. That's what we did last year.
There you
But
go.
let's
There
not
you
get
go.
too weird on the podcast. This is my last question for each guest. If there's another adult, busy mom, busy dad, listening to this and struggling to get the momentum to get started, what words of wisdom can you share to help them go from a struggling non-starter to getting some little bit of momentum going, regardless of what it is?
Basically, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And in my opinion, before I got fit and healthy, and even now, it is the most important thing, because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
It's so valuable, and I've had the blessing of training over 100,000 of these personalized sessions for adults. And what Andy's saying is absolutely true. And it might sound like rhetoric, but I can back that up, that you are a lot stronger than you think. I've seen adults accomplish some amazing things that I would have never guessed, regardless of their fitness level coming in. It's usually their mindset and how attached to the reason why they're doing it will carry them through. So maybe give a little thought to why it's important, and then get started. Like Andy says, you'll impress yourself. You'll be very proud of yourself.
Absolutely.
All right, sit tight. Let me do the sign off, because I want to thank all the listeners to the Synergy Accidentally Fit podcast. If you enjoy it, please make sure to follow and review on your favorite podcast platform, because we're going to give more tips, interview more people, and share more real stories about getting fit as a busy adult. Looking forward to the next episode.